Make sure you guys' mics are muted during the intro. One of you didn't have your mic muted last week.
I don't think it was me.
That was Edinar.
Oh, well, that's who it was, wasn't it? He's like,
yeah. Yep, that would all be Edinar. Alright, now I'm just gonna send stuff over to Discord. Then we can start the show.
You start the show. Oh, wait, that's what
Oh.
you're doing.
Oh, well, technically it's already started, but it's pre-show.
Oh, well, you start the show.
It's a pre-show. It's a show before the show. The pre-show.
The best show.
The show where I swear before I find out we're on stream that I stop swearing.
Something like that.
And then I start swearing more.
It's pretty much.
Oh, is that how that works?
Hell yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm.
I guess I should mute this stream. Huh?
I mean, you can. Oh boy.
Pop out chat.
Post in all the places. So the recall didn't really take me that much time to do.
That's good.
Yeah, you told us that.
I was expecting it to take me like 30 to 45 minutes. I did in like 16.
Nice.
And that was with me like direct link into the episodes and not just doing the RSS feed.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's not bad.
All right, pop out chat. Okay. Here's it. Boom. All right. So waiting on a few people to reach out about the pick'em prizes. But I did crack into the top 5. That's a thing.
Nice.
I hate you. I mean, shit. What I meant to say was congratulations, man. That's awesome. Something else came out. I don't know why. That was weird.
Yeah.
I broke into the top 500.
All right.
I mean,
I can gloat with the best of them.
you can't really break it when we don't even have 500 the entire time.
I don't know. I wanted to gloat, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Win by default.
You kept it close again, Slambo. There's only like a couple 100 points again this week. Differential.
But all I have is like I'm better than you guys in Overwatch.
That's not enough.
I finished higher than you last season.
Did you?
I think so.
What'd you finish?
Like 34.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you finished higher. than me.
I think it was like 33.93 or something.
Damn it, Spider! Why do you have to take everything away from Slambo?
No, he can have that.
Oh yeah, I feel so bad for him. When last episode was just you telling me how terrible I was.
What did you peak at?
That was my peak.
Oh,
That's
okay.
my highest peak on that account ever.
Got it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I still peaked in Masters, but I just didn't stay up there. I lost like 350 SR one day. Like one Friday, I got off work early. I was like, "Let's do this, yeah!" And then lost like 10 in a row. I was like, "No, why did I fucking do that?"
No, I did my placements and then quit. I was like, "Oh, career high for this account. I'm done."
That's awesome.
Nice. All right, I am good to go. Sent out all the tweets and whatnot. So yeah, let's do a show. Talk some Overwatch.
We're late.
Let's do a thing.
I mean, I wanted to give people a few minutes to get in here, but who knows? I mean, people
always-
are out traveling, and we're like in California and shit. Whatever. Let's do a show. Starting out.
You are listening to the Overwatch League Network. the podcast with Deadeye on all the Overwatch League news and information. The show with Tactical Visor on the statistics and analysis. Here are your hosts, Totally Drunk, Spider, and Slambo.
What is up, guys, and welcome to Overwatch League Network, the podcast with Deadeye on all the latest Overwatch League news, information, and esports analysis. I am your host, Totally Drunk, and tonight is episode 32. We're going to go around the league discussing the latest Overwatch League news. We'll take a look back at Stage 3, Week 5, break down the Stage 3 playoffs, and let you know what storylines that we're going to be looking out for in Stage 4. But before we get into the news and introduce you to my co-host, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out with us in Twitch chat tonight, and thank all of our repeat listeners. Of course, as always, I have a few friends with me here tonight to help break everything down. Up first, ready to go whole hog off the heels of the stage playoffs, is my soulmate Slambo. Slambo, I know you're a little bit under the weather, but outside of that, how are you doing, brother?
Oh, what's up, nerd? Yeah, man, I'm feeling fantastic right now. My Dayquil's kicked in, so I'm feeling all chipper. I apologize for my multiple throat clears, but last week was one sickness. This week's it's another one. I'm a mess, but I'm still here. I'm making it 2 in a row, Totem, if you're keeping count of this week, which I'm sure you are.
Let me just add the tally right now.
Yeah, okay. Tick. Yeah, not a lot to keep track of. It's a pretty small chalkboard at the moment, but I'm excited to be here. We got our Stage 3 playoffs. It was a really good Sunday, championship Sunday. Had a really good time. Enjoyed the show. Looking forward to breaking stuff down and talking about it. And yeah, let's see how long I last.
All right, well, up next on his own quest for a perfect stage, at least in the pick'ems, hashtag forever third himself, Spider. Spider, how are you doing tonight?
The resident Shanghai Dragons of the Overwatch League Network podcast, apparently.
Yep.
I mean, I missed 1 week, and you guys just like, not only do I like the dumpster fire, but basically you guys have just thrown me in the dumpster fire at this point. So,
Spider,
yeah.
I love you. Can I just say that, like, on the record? I apologize, and I love you. Thank you. That's why
I know it comes from a place of love, so I just take it and roll with it. But I have to say, when I was listening to it in the car, I cried the whole way home. I was like, I can't believe they think I'm this bad at pick'ems. And then I look at my pick'ems score, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I am this bad at pick'ems.
See, it's just
man. But you just believe in the underdog. That's all. I mean, that's all.
That's it. I mean, it hit a point where I got so far behind that I just had to make crazy picks to even have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I went with the safe pick every time, even if I hit every single one of those, you guys still would have beat me. So at this point, the only thing I can hope for is to redeem myself in Stage 4. I can't win, overall at this point, as far as my math goes. But unless you guys just forget to pick the whole time. But I could still win Stage 4. So I'm gonna probably lose that too. But you know what? Beyond pick'ems, it was a great week. I mean, like you guys said, we had playoffs. So I got to watch, that. I also got to watch my friend play in the Scrub Cup. His team made it to the finals.
Nice.
I don't know if they're done airing yet, so I can't reveal the result. But that's actually pretty cool. So if you guys are, platinum and under, check out the Scrub Cup. It's a great way to get organized teams and, get a little feeling of that Overwatch League for the people who aren't top 500. But beyond that, just playing around in the new meta. Did a lot of cleaning in the house. You guys can't tell because this beautiful green screen, but it is a lot cleaner now. Spring cleaning. But other than that, I kept myself busy over the week that you guys, threw me in the dumpster fire. So what about you? Enough about me. What about you, Totem? I've heard you had a busy week and you started something new. So what did you do this week?
Well, I mean, I'll just start with something new. So, over the last week, you guys probably saw me tweeting about a new project that I've been working on, which is Overwatch Recall, which is essentially an Overwatch podcast directory. That is up on our website now. I also did the first release of at least like the first week worth of episodes. So if there's content out there that, you know, one of the Overwatch podcasts release, chances are it will be on the first Overwatch recall. And you can find that over on our website. But other than that, like, it's been an interesting week. I've avoided competitive. But, you know, I was playing Overwatch with my niece and nephews this week, which was a ton of fun. They got to experience the trauma of dealing with the new Hanzo, which is always entertaining. So, yeah, there is that. But enough about that, guys. We gotta talk about the Overwatch League. It was a busy week between, you know, the final week of Stage 3, as well as stuff that is going on around the league. So let's go ahead and talk about what's been going down in this week's Overwatch League news. So, to start things off, bit of a coaching update. This had already kind of, like, taken place, but I just wanted to bring it up anyways, but Mineral had stepped down from his position as the Florida head coach temporarily, and this kind of happened like in the later side of Stage 3. And this is only temporary, so he is planning on returning to his coaching duties in Stage 4. And he basically said, like, he was dealing with burnout and various health issues since the start of Stage 2. And, you know, Florida Mayhem has always been one of those teams that didn't really have that many pieces, whether it was on their roster or their coaching staff. And, you know, in his absence, we did have Ryder and, you know, stepping in, leading the Mayhem in his absence. But really, like, the Overwatch League has definitely taken a mental and physical toll, not only on the players, but on the team staffs as well. So, you know, kind of looking back, like we saw, you know, Pine, you know, New York Excelsior, DPS, he missed basically all of Stage 2 due to mental issues at the time. Taimu had expressed similar feelings in the middle of April, saying that his mental state was basically in insanely bad place at the time. So, what can a league do in order to help this support infrastructure in the league to help out, you know, the staff members and the players? Because, you know, this has been a grind and it has taken a pretty heavy toll on quite a few people already.
I don't think there's much the league has to do. Just, you know, kind of encourage this. I think this is just something teams have to learn on their own, and I feel like after the first season, they've learned that. And I think the best example of this is endemic esports organizations are suffering the most. Like, you can look at Florida, for example, Misfits. You know, they came in thinking this was just any other esport. Whereas, you know, the endemic orgs don't really support their players. They kind of say, here's a paycheck, you know, we'll give you a little bit of resources, but it's up to you to produce the results. Whereas the traditional sports teams like Boston are founded by the Kraft Group, which, like I said, owns the New England Patriots, are more familiar with, you know, a generalized sports structure, a front office, a team behind the team, I guess is the best way you can say it. And the first season results basically speak to that. So if you look at these endemic orgs, you have Envious at the bottom, you have Florida at the bottom, you have Seoul. I hate to say it, guys. Seoul's in the middle of the pack.
Mm-hmm.
London's struggling. Whereas you have these top teams, like you have, you know, Philadelphia, you have, which is Comcast, but still has their hand in sports. Boston, which is the Kraft Group. These people realize that they need to put this big support structure in, and I don't think the league has to come down on that. I think teams have learned that lesson. I mean, look at Florida now versus Florida in Stage 1. Tavik was driving the bus to the arena. That should not happen. You don't see Steph Curry driving the bus and then going out on the court. That's not what they're there for. So like I said, I don't think the league has to do anything. I think this is just an expensive lesson that the endemic esports orgs had to learn.
Wow. Okay. I really don't think I need to add anything else. I mean, Spider pretty much nailed it, I think, right there. At least that's exactly what I felt on it, too. So, what the heck, man?
All right, well, moving on.
Back.
I mean,
yeah,
how many
he's
times
taking
does
your
that
job.
happen, though? Like, I'm just saying, like, yeah, we talked about this. He's taken away all of the victories in my life, and he's taken away my notes. Unbelievable.
The audacity of this guy. But, we do have some new sponsorships that are coming out for some of the Overwatch League teams out there. So first up, let's talk about the Houston Outlaws. So they have partnered with T-Mobile. And this one was kind of weird because, as you guys know, T-Mobile is already a sponsor of the Overwatch League itself. So T-Mobile is looking to provide perks to Outlaws fans, including discounts on their services, VIP seating at official Houston Outlaws events, and the two sides are going to be collaborating on a new behind-the-scenes content series. So this series, whatever it's going to be, is going to be released in addition to the team's YouTube series that they are already doing, which is Focus. But it's kind of weird seeing them kind of like double dip, not only with the Overwatch League, but a team within it itself. So that kind of threw me off with that one.
Slambo, you want to take this one since I stole your
no,
fire?
I mean, yeah, let me hear it go. Hope I'm going to guess. I'm going to say what you say. That's the plan. No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, is there a little bit of... It's a weird connection that T-Mobile has, the relationship it does with the league overall, and then has a relationship with a particular team, So T-Mobile stands to make more if they compound those two things together, and they stand to make less if those two things don't work. So I just feel like it's weird, but it's more of a risk on T-Mobile's part and hoping that Houston continues to grow its fan base and has a lot of success. If they are at middle of the pack and have a lot of famous players, I think they're going to be fine. T-Mobile's probably happy, and they would be even happier if the Outlaws would be in those finals, in those stage championships and things like that. So, it's just interesting to me, but it's kind of a risky move because, I actually, what I just thought of just now? It'd be cool if the other cell phone carriers got other teams and we had a little inter cell phone rivalry going on. Verizon picks up a squad, and what do you guys think? Is it a good idea?
It could happen.
No, you guys do not like this. This is not
No, more
right,
more
fine.
sponsors are great. I mean, that's
yeah,
basically
ultimately.
That's the point I wanted to get across was, they are apparently making money, so they want to invest more money. So, that's great for the league. The really good news is we get more behind the scenes for Houston Outlaws, which means we'll actually get to see Mendo, maybe, in the corner.
Don't get your hopes up. Don't get your hopes up, my friend. Don't get your hopes up.
Well, the only takeaway that I had from this is the fact that if a Houston Outlaws player gets MVP, I will absolutely know that it's rigged now. Because none of them are in the top 5, so that's gonna
Jake
happen.
out of nowhere with that rip tire
in your room at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
Holding
you hostage for that MVP vote.
just about. All right. Well, speaking of sponsorships, we also like to look at the San Francisco Shock, who have partnered with internet hardware provider Netgear, and it's not just with the Shock, but also their parent company, Energy Esports, the meme team, all that good stuff. So this is kind of similar to Netgear's sponsorship of the Seoul Dynasty. The company is going to provide the Shock with premium network products that are designed for gamers, but this partnership definitely made a lot more sense just because Netgear headquarters are based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and that Energy Squad will be using the Nighthawk Pro Gaming products when training in boot camps at the new Pro Gaming Lounge that they set up. But so not only do we have a little bit of double dipping going on in terms of one sponsorship, but now we also have one brand at least representing 2 different teams out there. So at least this one is more local to the San Francisco scene, so that made a bit more sense than the Dynasty one overall. But, more money is always good to build up esports.
Exactly. I mean, it goes back to what I said earlier. These sponsors are clearly making money for Overwatch League if they want to keep investing in it. So that's good news for us, and it's good news for them. So keep doing it.
Yeah, and then I was looking and thinking at most of the sponsorships and seeing how some of these partnerships have unfolded. And with kind of Boston being the exception, a lot of these teams are not the best team in the league, but they're more filled with these personalities and players. And so look at the shock, look at Dallas Fuel, Jack in the Box. And then, we just talked about T-Mobile and Houston. These aren't like the top 3 teams, but they're getting these large sponsorships because of their players, the people they have on their squad. So I was just thinking that's interesting that Wins is not equaling these big sponsorships this week in conversation. It's these personalities on these mid to low level teams that's drawn in the sponsorships. But hey, it's all good. I'm more for it. I'm not complaining. It was a weird observation.
I want to point out that Jack in the Box is less of a sponsor for Dallas and more of their main tank strategy. It's just who's going to come out of the box this week.
That's a pretty good joke. I'm not gonna lie. That's pretty good. That's pretty. That's a 10 out of 10. That's a black belt. That joke dojo.
I'm dead. All right, moving on, guys. We did have the announcement of the top 24 for this year's Overwatch World Cup. So I just wanted to talk about this because it does kind of correlate to, obviously, Overwatch League players competed in this. I want to talk about the group that United States is in, because we are one of the host countries. So with the United States, we have Canada, Austria, Brazil, Norway, and Switzerland. And, they did put up applications for community leads and coaches, which are part of these committees. Those applications are going to be collected until May 14th. And basically, the committee will consist of a general manager, a coach, and a community lead. So for the coaches, you'll have the top 150 players from that country vote in for that coach. Basically, the player base will vote for the community lead, and the general manager will be selected by Blizzard themselves. But, if you've been on Twitter, you may have seen, some content creators vying for your votes, and I did throw my name. So here's the thing, guys. I honestly don't care, what representation, who's in it in the long run, but, if we could get content creators in that community lead, that would lead to some pretty awesome opportunities for people out there. So, yes, I did throw my name into the hat. I know Kick Tripod did as well. He does Overwatch League Daily Show, which is another awesome podcast. And I know some of the High Noon guys did as well, but if you want to endorse me, you can do so by clicking on that link, and who knows. But I would love to see, some people from our podcast family be in that final list, however many people are going to be, narrowed down to at that point. But with that being said, guys, we need to talk about the United States team and who we think can represent the United States in this year's World Cup. So, obviously, Overwatch League would have been in full swing. We would have seen an entire season at least of Overwatch contenders and seen those academy teams. So, last year, we saw a lot of the Houston Outlaws players competing on the United States team. But, if you guys were to select, hand select people to represent the United States, and I think the best way to do that is probably going by position. So let's start with main tank. Spider, I want to start with you. Who do you think is vying for that spot to represent the U.S. on that role for main tank?
All right, so my top 2 are the tried and true Fact Fiction. We saw him last year.
Okay.
Pretty good results. And Super. I mean, Super's looked pretty solid so far. So I feel like he could make a good go at main tank, if not, off tank.
I like it, but there is another Outlaws tank out there that could also do main tank in Muma. But I think out of all of the main tanks, those 3 are the likeliest of the picks. But Sam, was there anyone out there that maybe has an outside shot and also get in the main tank role?
It's an outside shot, but maybe Super. Super's kind of coming into the limelight, and now he's of age to be in there, and I think he's been fun to watch. So maybe outside shot. Call that a dark horse.
Yeah, Muma and Super were the 2 that I had down. Moving on to off tank. Obviously, Cool Matt representing the U.S. last year, but You know, there is another off-tank out there that, you know, hasn't always traditionally played the off-tank, because he's always been kind of flex DPS as well. But if I were to pick someone, if it wasn't going to be Coolmad, I would love to see Gods come in. Right now he's playing for the Gladiators Legion. He's been playing a ton of D.Va, and he has been one of the best off-tanks that we have seen, at least at that level. And, you know, he's been around the scene for quite some time. So if I am looking for someone, maybe outside of Coolmat, because you already know that people are going to be gunning for his mech.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tried and true strat at this point, just to kill Coolmats. You know, I'm going with Gods for the off-tank role. What about you guys?
Well, my off tank was cool, Matt. So I'll throw out just another general tank suggestion, which is actually Beast Halo from Fusion University. You know, I've been watching some contenders playoffs, and he's actually surprised me. He's been, you know, his Winston is hit or miss, but his Orisa is like on point. So I'd like to see some more contenders people in there.
100% not a meme. 100% not a meme. Siegel on the D.Va. What do you think?
Do it.
Here's the thing. I'm trying to think like what role he would be better at, because I think he's put in a lot more time on the off-tank role than he has at DPS at this point. Just because of how many issues the field have been messing with. And, you know, from what we did see of him on the D.Va, I think he did pretty good. And, you know, chances are with his popularity, there's a fairly good shot he will be on the US team. But if I had to choose him out of one role, I think the off-tank role would be a better fit given just how much talent there is on the DPS role currently. So moving on to support, I picked out 4 support players because I didn't know. Well, I picked 2 that were on like main healer and then 2 that were on, you know, the flex support. So, you know, obviously Zenyatta is a pretty big deal right now.
Bobby Bun Lotta.
So last year we had Raucus and Adam as a US support. So those are 2 pretty obvious choices right now. You know, Raucus is on the Houston Outlaws. Adam has been competing in contenders as part of XL2 Academy. But if you look at consistent Zenyatta players that are out there, you know, Sleepy, you know, I'm not a huge Shock fan, but I love watching Sleepy play. He has been, I think, underrated just across the board by a lot of people, and I would love to see him get a chance to represent the US on the Zenyatta role for us.
My 2 picks, actually, I went with one of the other Outlaw supports. I went with Boink, just because his solid turnaround from stage 1, he's shown a lot of improvement, so I feel like he can just keep getting better. And then actually Ethan from Grizzly, I you know, watching contenders, I think he's one of the more underrated supports out there. So I think he can kind of, you know, grow, and we'll see him. I'm pretty sure we'll see him at least in Overwatch League next season for sure.
Like,
yeah, Sleepy was mine, so that's definitely, I agree 100% with you, Totem. He's at least he's like the US version of one of our favorite, insert any Korean Zenyatta player, basically. He's as close to it for the United States. He's a great Zenyatta.
absolutely. And for my other support, I actually went to contenders. You know, obviously Adam is probably one of the more well-known names out there, but another name, but on the younger side, that has been making a pretty big splash from Fusion University is Elk. So I think he's probably like one of the dark horse shots in regards to getting the vote. I have a feeling like we'll probably just end up seeing Raucus and Adam again. If not that, then Sleepy will probably be the other support. But DPS, guys, is probably the most stacked area. You know, last year we had Jake and Sinatra. This year, like, I'm so torn on this, because, like, I like Jake. I like what he brings. He talks like 800 miles per hour. But I don't know if he has improved enough to make me say, like, I definitely want him on the team. There are a ton of great players out there. So I'm gonna go with some players that are on contenders first, and then I'll let you guys take some of the Overwatch League players, and then if you don't bring up someone that I would also vote for, then I'll kind of circle back to it. But for Tracer Specialist and also Widowmaker, we have Nero from Toronto Esports. Toronto are still in a run-in. They're in the playoffs for contenders, and he has been an absolute monster and really carrying the DPS for Toronto Esports. And then looking at Energy Esports, which might not be the first name that you would think of if you're, looking to field talent, just because, they are the meme team. I have Stratus. Stratus is another one of those players that isn't 18 yet, but all of the pieces are there. The skill is there, and this kid is going to be an absolute monster when he comes of age and into the Overwatch League. So, a couple of young names to keep an eye out on in terms of the Tier 2 scene. But in regards to the Overwatch League, obviously, Sinatra and Jake, very viable options. But Spider, is there anyone else out there that you can see vying for those DPS slots?
My first pick was Buds. I want to see Buds. He's shown pretty consistent improvement in contenders this season, so I felt a little bad that he was left off of the Outlaws due to some behind the scenes conflicts, maybe. But the less, I guess, controversial is McGravy. I mean, McGravy has been tearing it up in contenders, so put him on a team and just let him loose.
God, I mean, it's tough. I think I'd rather see somebody flashy, some really flashy Widow plays in the World Cup. Something to kind of see if we can match that flower power, if you know what I'm talking about, boys. I'd like to see some.
That's if Flower makes it, because Korea is stacked beyond belief at this point.
I feel like with his performance last year, if they don't give him a full ride on this year, that's kind of, he's earned it. Anyway, that's my opinion. But and this is a dark horse pick, but this is again one of those flashy picks. I keep picking from this team, even though I hate this team. But Baby Bay, I mean, bring him out on the Widow. It'll be a Widow dominated meta. Maybe at that point, I guess it's not gonna be the same patch we're on right now. I guess Widow right now is ridiculous. So we're not going to be on this patch. So that's a really long dark horse shot. He's not always won a lot of the Widow duels. He hasn't proven to be consistent and got a ton of playing time. But anyway, I just feel like he's one of those big names, flashy Widow plays. Anyway, that's what I think. I'm just trying to find something because there's not a lot out there. I feel like you kind of have to go with like Jake and Sinatra if you're really doing this right. I really do.
Well, I mean, there are a few other players out there that I wrote down. I've Dante, that's another shock player. We've seen his Sombra play, which has been on another level compared to the majority of the Sombra play that we've seen in the Overwatch League so far. And his Tracer play was very good. When Sinatra was still not being able to compete due to him being 17 at the time. And Gladiators do have a few players as well that are pretty flashy, like Silk Thread, Hydration. Those are two options as well. But really, the DPS is a toss-up. And I think it really depends on who is the coach going to be? Because some coaches are going to be more open to bringing in some of that tier 2 talent, or at least talent that is competed in tier 2. So there are a ton of great head coach options for the United States. Obviously, last year we had Kai, who, used to head coach for the Dallas Fuel and is now part of the Houston Outlaws coaching staff. And I know that hasn't been technically announced, but he did kind of post that he was coaching the Outlaws when he put up his bid for the World Cup. And, he's also been in some of the videos on their YouTube. So we know he's on the staff. I don't know why they haven't made an official announcement. But, there are a few other names out there. So, there was some news earlier that Arrow from Fusion University had left for another opportunity. So, there's a potential chance that he could be Overwatch League bound here. But I think out of everyone, I think he would be my top pick for the head coach of the United States. We have Rafflegator, who has been on some of the biggest teams in the past. He's currently working with Envision Esports, who are also in the hunt for Contenders North America. But anyone else that you guys kind of have your eyes on that could be representing the U.S. as their head coach? Who do you guys want to see?
Now, Shake. Did you mention Shake? We haven't talked Shake yet.
I
think
did
Shake
not.
from Boston. I think Shake is definitely someone that we can see taking over a more prominent role in Boston now, with some other news coming up. And he's a player that's been around the scene for a long time, and I think has to help in that Boston and understand how that Boston team fit together and worked. And if we can use any of that, let's take a bunch of randos and make them a very successful group. It's Boston, right? They're the team no one believed in. So that's what we need. We need that miracle, Kurt Russell movie type of scenario to take down Korea. I mean, that is the test this year. I don't care what round it's going to be in. That is the final. It was last year. I'm wearing my World Cup 2017 hat. I can't those moments were amazing, even though we lost. So, excuse me. I feel like, anyway, this just has to happen, and we have to do better this year. We have to win. But I'm definitely amped up for it, and I don't know. I guess I just Shake is, to me, someone that can really help do that. So assistant coach or something, but he needs to contribute.
Yeah, well, we'll have to get a new GIF of you shaking in anticipation for the World Cup this year. But Spider, what about you, man? Who do you think could also be vying for that head coach role?
So I have three.
Okay.
Well, the first one to go along with that is actually Huck.
Mhm.
I feel like Huck should at least be in consideration for it.
And he was the only one that believed in Boston.
Right. So, and if Huck comes, I can't imagine Shake wouldn't come. So that would be a good pairing. Deepay from the Gladiators. We've seen what kind of work he's done with them. They've looked better and better, and they've gone from a bottom half team to in the middle. But I think he should at least be in the running. And then finally, my long shot, my dark horse is Mezzer, just because he's kind of retired, but I feel like he has the knowledge of the game and he still plays the game. So I feel like he could at least come back as a coach. And like I said, that's my long shot, but I liked Mezzer.
Yeah, maybe Deepay will come in and shoulder block some people.
Exactly.
But like the other name that I had down that might be an offshot too is Bare Hands, formerly of New York Excelsior as their GM. But I think in terms of like all of the major candidates, I think we got a pretty good variety in terms of former players, coaches, and whatnot. But this is really like anyone's game. More than likely, it's probably either gonna go to probably Kai or Arrow out of everyone. But speaking of coaching staffs, guys, we do have an update, and it's kind of came out on two fronts because Boston released a statement saying that they had parted ways with Krusty, who was their head coach, and then San Francisco came out earlier, and they said that they had released their head coach, Brad Rahani. He was the former head coach for Selfless Gaming, and then they signed former Boston Uprising head coach Krusty, and Krusty will be acting as the Shock's new head coach starting Stage 4. And then on top of that, kind of going from, path to pro up, the Shock also are bringing up their Energy Contenders head coach, 9K, who previously had coached for Rocks Orcas back in Apex Challenger Season 3, as well as Apex Season 4. So, they kind of leaves maybe a spot open in Boston, which, might go to Arrow, might not go to Arrow. But, we do see a lot of moves for the Shock kind of coming into Stage 4. And, they're not completely out of the end of season playoffs, but it will take a lot of help along the way and practically like a perfect stage just for them to make it. But, this is a team that, we've seen as they've gotten their pieces, it's just taking a little bit of time to get everything implemented, but, based off the recent performances of Architect and Dante, and just the consistencies of their support line, like, this is definitely a team that is one to look out for, and, this season might not be their year, but, with a little bit more work, this could be one of the contenders, in the future.
Yeah, I feel like this was a move, kind of a last ditch effort to try to make the push for season playoffs, but more so to position themselves better for season 2. Get that coaching staff into place, get that working, see how they deal with the players, stuff like that. So I I think we'll see a little bit more well-rounded Shock in stage 4, but I don't think it's going to be enough to change their fate because, like you said, they are the longest of shots right now to actually still be in the running. And we've seen it happen. I mean, we've seen Philadelphia pull it off, but it would, like you said, it'd take a pretty monumental stage plus some other key teams losing out to do that. Um, as far as the other news goes, I'm not going to count Brad out yet because Brad has been in this game so long. I mean, he started in Selfish, then NRG, and then into the Shock. He just knows the scene too well. So I feel like we're going to see some more Brad, whether it's on a contenders team, whether it's an expansion team, World Cup, who knows? I feel like we're gonna see him. And Krusty, the other side of it, that just feels like, okay, I'm doing really good with Boston. And then the Shock came and said, boy, you're really doing good with Boston. How about a bunch of money and you come here and help us? And Krusty was like, okay, yeah, sure. So that's like the only thing in my head that makes sense. Like, why would you go from a team that's in the top 3 at least, if not top 2 or top team, um, to a team that has been bottom, say bottom 5 to be safe. Uh, you know, um, it there had to be some money involved.
Well, I
Uh,
could have sworn that there were some rumblings of some internal issues with Krusty and the Boston Uprising, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean,
You're listening to Reddit rumors, is what you're doing, Totem.
I mean, everything they put out is like this wholesome group, which we know isn't true. We know there has to be arguments and stuff, but the key to a good organization is how you resolve those arguments and you move forward. And Boston, as a team, has shown that they've been able to get past that stuff. I mean, they lost a player out of nowhere for a major reason and rebounded amazingly. So the coaching staff had to have something to do with that. So the fact that Krusty was able to get them through that, sure, he may have taken some blows along the way, but that speaks to his ability. And I think that's why other teams were, chomping at the bit to try to bring him in. And 9K is just another coach. I mean, that brings them up to 5 coaches total, which is one of the most robust offices we have in the league. So hopefully that kind of just sets them up for future stuff. I mean, I don't know enough about 9K to really say anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry, Totem. It wasn't a Reddit rumor. It was
It's a
leak
slasher
boy
report.
rumor. Yeah, okay, yeah. I'm sorry, Spider, but no, not to. I want to circle back to something you were talking about, Spider, or maybe I think it was Totem. But I think this is bigger news for the Shock and less of an impact to Boston, as you were saying. And I think that, to me, this is like an evaluation period for Krusty to kind of see how the season ends, to see how the inner workings of the team, the communication, and it's a good time. Like, I think they don't think this is not going to be like that miracle season. It's not going to happen. I don't think that the ownership thinks that, and I don't think Krusty expects that. I think what we're going to see is him just kind of clean house possibly after this season and bring in a cheaper, possibly, I say that because that's the Boston way, but a cheaper roster that's going to lean more towards synergy rather than some of these big names players who just sit on the bench and don't get enough action, which is basically what they have with a lot of their DPS lineup with Shock. So I'm interested to see how it goes. And I think coaching is a huge difference in this league. So I expect season 2, the Shock, to be a much different team, especially with a lot of that talent they have.
Yeah, just talking about coaching real quick. Like, at this point, we've seen basically half of the teams have some sort of change in their coaching staff as well. So I'm really curious to see how that number is going to change once we get to the end of Season 1 and seeing just how many, kind of moves we've had on that regard. But, you know, we've had a ton of movement, not only between teams, but our power rankings as well. So our top 6 this week was completely shuffled. So I'll go through the top 6 real quick, and then you can find the rest of the power rankings over in our Discord and on our website. So, regaining their crown, coming in at number 1, we have the New York Excelsior. Boston dropped 1 spot and are currently 2nd. In 3rd, we have the Los Angeles Valiant. In 4th, we have the Philadelphia Fusion. In 5th, we have the London Spitfire. And in 6th, we have the Los Angeles Gladiators. So, really, like, quite a few of these teams are in that, you know, top 6 in the long run for overall league stand-ins. Seoul kind of being the outside looking in on our power rankings, despite having one of the better records in the top 6 in the league. But really, like, a lot of this is just due to the fact that, you know, some things went down in the stage playoffs that we'll definitely talk about. But before we can talk about the playoffs, we got to talk about what happened Wednesday through Saturday in the Overwatch League. So on Wednesday, guys, we kick things off with Philadelphia Fusion going up against the Dallas Fuel, and Philly took that one 3-1. We saw the LA Gladiators defeat the Florida Mayhem 3-0. And then the San Francisco Shock defeated the Houston Outlaws 3-2, which was a pretty big win for the Shock. On Thursday, the Shock defeated the Florida Mayhem 4-0. Boston Uprising continued their quest of a perfect stage, defeating the Los Angeles Valiant 3-2. Then we saw the New York Excelsior defeat the Dallas Fuel 4-0. On Friday, Boston Uprising, you know, finished 10-0 by defeating the LA Gladiators 3-1. We saw the New York Excelsior defeat the Shanghai Dragons 3-1. And the London Spitfire defeated Seoul Dynasty, not 4-0 like every other time, but 3-2.
Woo!
Personal victory for the Soulmates. We were close. We got a map. That's how we. That's what
the bigger
we
news,
wanted.
Though, is London won Oasis.
That is also true. That is another like bizarro thing that happened.
against a real serious Soul lineup too. Yeah.
Yep. And to wrap up the regular part of the stage, we had the London Spitfire defeat the Shanghai Dragons 3-1. The Seoul Dynasty defeated the Houston Outlaws 4-0. And the LA Valiant cut Philadelphia Fusion's playoff hopes and their legs underneath them by winning that one 3-2. But, you know, Slambo, it was an interesting week for our Seoul Dynasty, and we have to talk about one thing in particular. We have to talk about Ryuji Khan, because Ryuji Khan, you know, if you guys were watching, I saw them tweet out the lineup, and I'm like, okay. And then, you know, we've seen the first 3 stages, and it's been a bit of a rough patch. A rough season, I mean, really.
Definitely a rough stage, yeah, rough stage for sure.
So, you know, Dynasty, despite that championship pedigree of, you know, the Lunatic High Pass, you know, they have failed to reach the stage playoffs, but they are still in the run-in for the end of season playoffs. So, you know, last week basically caught everyone off guard because they came out with a different look, and I'm gonna say, like, it caught people off guard because it was a completely different look to the normal odd looks that we would get otherwise, which have kind of been one of the consistent inconsistencies of the Seoul Dynasty so far. So, what went down this past week? Well, one, Mira was not in the picture as the team's main tank, and taking up that role was none other than Ryuji Han, or in this case, Ryuji Khan. So, you know, this is not the first time we have seen a team try to transition someone off of a role to fill the main tank role. We saw it with Dallas Fuel when they attempted to do the same with Tankmu during the Fuel's main tank struggles, back when that was one of the few problems that they were dealing with.
The good old days.
That was before everything went to shit. But
before there were real problems
Yes.
with the Fuel.
Yeah.
So, you know, Ryu was on that Zenyatta role for the Dynasty prior. So transitioning into that Winston role is a little bit different. And, you know, with his game sense and just knowing when these other main tanks have been diving him, he had a better understanding of that role to begin with, and things did look fairly better for Sol this week. So with this move, that also meant that Guido is going to be seeing some more play on that support line, whether that is with Toby or Gambler, whoever. But Dynasty, they completely trounced the Outlaw, shutting them out with a clean 4-0. They took 2 maps off of the London Spitfire, who London had previously, taken the last 16 maps off of this core Dynasty roster. So, Miro, he's kind of not really, changed his playstyle on the Winston. It's basically the same Winston we've been seeing for the past couple of years. So a lot of people already know his playbook. But, Ryu comes in, I'm not gonna say, he did absolutely fantastic, but it was serviceable, and it did open up a ton of space for Fleta, who really had a standout performance this week. So, with that being said, Miro might see a little bit less playtime, but Slambo, I want to get your thoughts on this. Obviously, we have seen so many different looks from the Seoul Dynasty. How are you feeling right now, at least with early impressions with this look?
Where was this 4 weeks ago? I just feel like that to me, I mean, I only have an analogy to bring to the table to kind of tell you that how this feels for me, and this might not be the same for you guys, but when I rearrange my bedroom, there's this feeling I have when I walk in it for the first time. It's the same 4 walls, it's the same pieces of furniture, but it's a new experience when you walk in. And sometimes that's good for you to appreciate your environment. That's good for you to walk in and kind of appreciate your room and want to spend more time in it and want to have it. And I think that psychologically, there's something that goes to that for these teams that are struggling, that just do something crazy and mix it up and just experience something new. And they find that there's some peace in that. They find that there's some happiness in that. And I feel like Ryu Jae-hong is the player to do that for you. He is the guy that can pick up a new character quickly. That's what he said he prides himself on, is that he's a person that can play a character and get better at it faster than anyone else. So he's probably been playing these characters on the side in his own time, and he's like, just put me in, watch what happens. And they were like, oh, and scrims, wow, you really can play a little bit of Rhino Risa Winston, which is what you need in your repertoire to play main tank right now at this point in the Overwatch League. So, like you said, was it amazing? Did he shatter? Was he better Reinhardt than Fisher? Was he a better, Winston than, I guess I would say Fisher, I guess, on that same facet too. But I don't know. No, but that's not what he needed to do. What the Soul needed was a change of pace, was a change of scenery. They needed the furniture rearranged. I think it works. I think it felt good. I think they look good, and they need to keep it going for stage 4.
Yeah, I think this was a neat change. I think it mostly came from the fact that they really had nothing to lose at this point for stage 3. They were pretty much out of the playoffs at that point. I think they were officially eliminated by that point. And they needed a change of pace. And we didn't get any word on what was happening with Miro. Miro could have taken the week off, flown back to Korea early. Who knows what any of that happened. What I hope moving forward is they kind of embrace this, like you guys said. They need that breath of fresh air and let him play. Sure, keep Miro in the lineup because he's proven to be, consistently at a higher level of Winston play. He's still one of the better ones in the league. Especially when you're looking at some of the ones that played earlier in the league, like iRemix and anybody on the Shanghai Dragons. But I hope they play him more because this adds complexity to Seoul's roster. Like, they were always that team that you knew who was pretty much going to play unless somebody is out for an injury or sick or something. You knew how they were going to play, and you just had to adapt around it. So I think this adds a nice level of complexity to them. That being said, his synergy with Zumba was amazing. and it opened up the doors for Zumba. I mean, you talked about Fleda's weekend. Let's
Mhm.
talk about Zumba's weekend. Zumba was ridiculous during that Outlaws match. I mean, he posted some of the best diva stats I have seen in the league since it started. I mean, I can't understate how good of games Zumba had when he played. It just go watch them. Like it is ridiculous. Um, but yeah, Ryu J Kong is, I hope, here to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they are just been like too many weeks for Soul where they come out, they throw out like these different looks with like some of their what a lot of people would consider like their B players, essentially, and then they would just lose matches or maps that they probably should have taken, and that's always kind of been like their downfall. That's why they haven't been able to make their way into the stage playoffs. So, hopefully, with a new meta, a new look, maybe that will bring new results for Soul Dynasty. Maybe they can actually get in the run-in for that top four at the end of Stage 4. But, this is a team that is still leading their division. So, whoever is top at the end of the season in each division is going to get a bye for, that first part of the playoffs. So, Seoul could be the team to get that, and, maybe just a little bit more consistency from their starting lineup will bring just that. But definitely, it brought a smile to my face. Initially I was like, what is this? And then by the end of the Spitfire Dynasty game, I'm like, okay, this can work. Let's just keep at it. And Slambo's net dropped. So that's gonna mess up the
No, the cameras are all over.
They're gonna get up in the whatever, we'll just leave it. I don't care anymore. I mean, I could just throw it back to the starting thing for now.
If I go back, if I lean like this, I'm in the camera.
I can be in
Yeah.
both.
Yeah, you can be in both.
Yeah, we're just gonna leave it until it reconnects. Or I'll throw it back to the starting screen for now. And you guys can just listen to our voices. But moving on, guys, Philadelphia were coming into this final week with, still a chance to make the playoffs. They needed a perfect series against the Los Angeles Valiant in order to qualify for the Stage 3 playoffs. Well, that did not happen. Well, for one, Carpe was not in the starting lineup for the Fusion and didn't play during the series as he was on rest. And a Valiant came out on Volskaya Industries off the back of a pretty strong, performance on Tracer by Bunny and completely dashed the playoff hopes of the Philadelphia Fusion. But as we have come to know Philadelphia, they did not go down without a fight. The series went to a Map 5, as per the norm with Philadelphia. I mean, that's kind of been the tried and true method of Philadelphia. They will always fight you until the very end. Most cases, going to a Map 5. But
much.
Fusion, they lost on both control maps in this series, despite, kind of how well that kind of plays into that scrappy playstyle that they do bring. But, fans, have been questioning, well, like, why didn't you decide to opt to play Carpe when the playoffs were on the line? But, a 4-0 over one of these playoff teams seemed very unlikely. And, like, if I compare that to, like, well, everything had to go right in order for them to make the Stage 2 playoffs, which, yes, that did happen, but a 4-0 over the Valiant seemed like an even bigger stretch than what we saw in Stage 2. So I don't think that Carpe playing would have made a difference. I mean, maybe it would have tilted it in Philadelphia's favor in regards to the actual result, but a 4-0 I think was definitely out of question going in.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched Carpe since he was, way back when he was on BK Stars, and this guy always hits it like ground running, 100%. So for him to not play, something major had to happen, either coaching wise, or I'm gonna go the more positive route and say he was probably just really sick. So because from what I've seen of him, he is that player that wants to play if he can play, and he's always going to try to give it his 100%. So I feel like he just wasn't able to play. And I think you're absolutely right. I feel like they realized this was going to be an uphill battle no matter what. and they were like, okay, Carpe, just sit the week out. We'll try to do it without you. Get the rest. We'd rather you be healthy, and I think that's overall the right call. So, um, it's just I don't know. From what I've seen of Carpe, I feel like there just has to be some major reason that he couldn't play, like he was seriously sick or something like that.
Yeah, I can see that. But I mean, really, like, Carpe has been the carry for this team. But they have had pretty consistent play from their DPS line. Might not have come through, in this series. But again, like, to still take it to a map 5, even without Carpe in the lineup, is still, a win in my books if you are Philadelphia. But, I can kind of understand, the viewpoint of some of the fans. Obviously, they want their team to be in the playoffs. And, I'm not going to say they lucked out in Stage 2, but a lot of things had to go right in order for that to actually happen. And the same could pretty much be said about their Stage 3 chances as well. But, this is still a team that is in the run-in for the end-of-season playoffs. And you're going to need a healthy Carpe in order to get that spot for the end of season playoffs. So resting him was definitely the right move in my mind. But, we have to talk about probably the biggest story coming out of Stage 3, and that is Boston and their perfect stage. So, Boston have been the Cinderella story of the Overwatch League. Yes, I know Shanghai, they're 0-30, they're still looking to get their first win. And when they do, that will be kind of a Cinderella story in its own right. But, Boston, they have shattered the community's expectations as we've talked about. Like, we'll keep bringing it up. This is a team that was pegged as one of the worst looking teams, at least on paper, at the start of the Overwatch League. And now, they're the first team to go 10-0 in a stage. They finished Stage 3 by winning the Overwatch League record 14th game in a row, a record which they had broken in Stage 3 Week 4. And, this happened despite a player release midway through the stage. And, nothing could really just stop Boston from rising up, as they basically just, ran shot through everyone that stood before them. And that's been backed by their impressive dive, their ability to pressure Jonak, especially in that series against New York, and off the play of arguably, the most underrated diva in Overwatch League today. That be a note. So, they looked very posed to continue their run through the playoffs, and, as the top seed of Stage 3, they ended up getting to choose their opponent, and... that was one of the funniest moments to me for, one of the dumbest reasons, but just the way that Huck delivered that line, saying how, they just wanted a warm-up, so they chose, a weak opponent in the Los Angeles Gladiators. That just cracked me up so much, and the Boo Birds definitely came out from the home crowd, but, you have to give it up to Boston. This is a team that everyone was like, yeah, okay, kind of rolling their eyes, and then they just come in, they, their first stage went pretty well, a lot better than anyone was expecting. Second was kind of miss for them, but Stage 3, man, back with the dive, they looked almost untouchable. They were pressuring the best teams in the league. They beat all 3 Korean teams in the same stage, which had never been done. And they've just had so much consistency across the board. And, while I didn't have them winning, the Stage 3 finals in our predictions, I knew that this is a team that had the potential to upset people after the performances that they had put in. But it was just a question of, well, how are they going to do against a team that they've beaten that we know is going to be able to adapt the next time they face? And, we kind of saw how that played out, but we'll go over that momentarily. But I just want to get your thoughts off of just the journey that Boston has been on, going from, this nobody team to all of a sudden being undefeated in the stage, which is something that hadn't been done prior.
I mean, it is hard to overstate how surprising Boston's run has been. I mean, you hit all the major points, how low everybody thought they would be, and I feel like Stage 3 is like the capstone to that story. Like, this is their we've made it moment. Like they are counted among the top echelons of the league at this point. Um, I won't say that they did it dominantly. I feel like New York is still the most dominant team in the league because a lot of their wins in stage 3 were in game 5. So they could have lost some there. They were all very close games, but they proved that they had the mettle to stand on the edge and still bring it back. So I feel like that speaks to Boston as an org, and I want to give them credit where it is. And they have that solid team dynamic because of that. Just overall, I have been constantly surprised by this team, and I'm going to keep saying that because I was one of the last people to count them out, except for maybe Edinar. It seems like Edinar kept holding out hope that they were worse than they were showing longer than I did. Like I even at one point I had to be like, okay, yeah, I was straight up wrong about them, and it seems like he held on to that sentiment much longer than I did. But Striker is amazing. Striker is definitely in the tops for top tracer in the league. Gamsu, one of the best tanks as far as Winston goes. Honestly, what stood out to me again was the Diva player was Note. Dude just does not die. Like
No.
he lives through some ridiculous situations, hops right back in his mech, and then just clears out the team. So this Boston team, I hope continues their success into stage 4 and comes back in the season playoffs, and we get to see them make a serious run at the finals, because I'd like to see a repeat of the stage finals in the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely, because, that rivalry has really started to blow up, just like it has in the sports. It's brought back over to the Overwatch League. So, with that being said, guys, we got to talk about what went down on Sunday, that being the Stage 3 playoff. So, we kick things off with Boston Uprising, the top seed, going up against the 4 seed in the Los Angeles Gladiators. The weak opponent, as they had called it, and that one ended 3-0. So, we'll kind of take this game by game before we talk about the other results. Boston, they were coming in, and they just completely dismantled the Gladiators. I don't know how else to put it, but they, really deflated the home crowd. You could feel the energy, and then it just got silent. It was so awkward. We saw the Gladiators and their support line. Their ult usage was kind of downright awful at times. We saw Shaz waste in Transcendence on Temple of Anubis after 3 of his teammates had died. Big Goose with his Valkyries didn't really do that much better, as he was killed almost instantly multiple times on Junkertown when he used it. You had Striker, who basically had gone uncontested for a large portion of this series by the Gladiators, and one of the few times that they chose not to ignore Striker, which was, I want to say it was on Anubis, they sent 3 people at him, and he was on Junkrat, and he destroyed everyone. Yep. What do you do? He had the odd man disadvantage, and he took them 3-on-1. So, yeah, there's that. So, Boston ended up extending their win streak, including the playoffs, to 15 games. And, Surefour, despite being one of the improving Widowmakers in the league, he had a lot better stats in Stage 3 on that role. And, some of that might be because Fisher was kind of calling him out on it, saying, you're not that good, kind of blasting him. And then all of a sudden, Surefour starts showing up, so that was the thing. But, in that series, he was just outclassed by mistakes. And this was the first time in Overwatch League history that a playoff series had resulted in a sweep. So Boston, again, at the forefront of making history. So seems to be a theme for them throughout this stage.
I mean, it was like Huck said, it was their warm-up game. That's exactly what it looked like. It looked like they were on a completely different level. They shut down Surefour. They made him almost a non-factor. Fisher couldn't do Fisher things. They made him almost a non-factor, and the rest of the Gladiators just crumbled around it. Like you said, the supports were all over the place. It was honestly hard to watch because I like the Gladiators players, and I like seeing them do well. and this was not one of those games where they did well. So I hope they take the lessons that they got from this and kind of plug those holes. But yeah, this is just a dominant performance by Boston.
Absolutely. So, moving on to that second set, we had the New York Excelsior going up against the Los Angeles Valiants, and again, kind of the same thing. It was almost like the script was just copied and pasted, because New York came in and 3-0'd the LA Valiant, so not a good day for the home crowd for LA. So yeah, that was the thing. But you know, New York, they were looking to set up that rematch and a shot at redemption against Boston, who gave New York their sole loss of the stage. And really, you know, that was one of the bigger upsets, at least in the Overwatch League this stage for sure. But, you know, it felt like LA just could not finish Junkertown on attack. You know, they started out really strong. You know, they had soon really taken early command off the back of his Widowmaker play. Agilities was there, pretty much cleaning things up on the Junkrat and Genji, and then, you know, they were getting towards, you know, the final turn, and then all of that progression had basically just got halted at that point. So it seemed like as soon as New York was able to gain a little bit of composure, the series was all but over at this point. So, you know, Excelsior ended up full holding the Valiant over on Temple of Anubis, so really just slammed the door shut on them. But, you know, we've seen New York kind of like, you know, at least by what they were saying, they were kind of like dialing it back a little bit, playing their cards closer to their chest for come playoff time, and then just like the last series, this was kind of their warm-up, because they had an easy time dealing with the Valiant, and, you know, we didn't get a battle for LA in the playoffs, but, you know, just not a very good day if you are in the LA area.
I will say this series, even though it was another 3-0, was closer than the Boston series. The first map, they were stopped just a little bit short. Both of the points on the control went to 99-99, and it really only resulted in a win for New York because they pulled off some phenomenal plays to bring the points back to their control. So Valiant did at least put up a fight, with the exception of that Anubis map. I feel like at that point, New York had too much momentum, and there really wasn't anything that the Valiant could do at that point. But my call out for this one is definitely Custa. Like, Custa tried everything in his power to turn all these fights around. Like, he was flying all over the place. He was going battle mercy, and there was just like, I don't know, just like New York knew where he was and how to take him down every single time. Like, Libero was there, SPB was there. I felt bad because I like Custa. I like watching Custa play. I feel like he's a very talented player. He's a good team leader. But man, New York just like, they had his number. So, but like I said, I want to at least put out the sentiment that this was a little bit closer as far as 3-0s go than the Boston series. Like, I feel like, you know, I don't feel like the Valiant had a chance to win, but I feel like they at least showed that they deserve to be in the playoffs. Whereas the Gladiators, I feel like, you know, you could have inserted any other team and we would have saw the same game at that point. So yeah, I hope, you know, I guess just to kind of bring it all together, I hope in the future the Valiant can kind of take, you know, I said it for the last one, but I'll say it for this one, take a lesson out of this one and, you know, deal with New York's aggressive style, because a lot of people, the way they've been dealing with it is going aggressive and taking down Jonak, whereas this time it wasn't so much that as their DPS kind of were let to run free and nobody was corralling them. So I feel like just teams have to do a good job of controlling them and then also put pressure on Jonak. And, you know, there's a reason New York is the best team in the league. But, you know, we'll talk about the finals and why I think that's true.
All right, well, all the cams are good. Slamba looks like there's a net outage in his area, so he probably is not going to be back tonight, so let's go ahead and talk about what went down in the Stage 3 Finals, which was the Boston Uprising going up against the New York Excelsior. So, New York became the first team to win back-to-back stage titles after defeating the Boston Uprising 3-0. Now, that was in 4 maps because there was a draw in this, but, this was the 3rd straight stage where the Excelsior were playing in the stage finals. And every time it looked like Boston was going to gain the upper hand, the Excelsior were there to remind everyone that they still are the best team in Overwatch League. Route 66, we saw Boston get basically shut down in its final push, getting towards that last point. Boston did manage to get 99% on both rounds of Nepal. That was on Village and Sanctum, but, New York Excelsior ended up winning out in the end in that regard as well. And Volskaya, which was Boston's best map, they were boasting a 10-0-0 record. That could have been their opportunity to fight back in this series, but that was a map that ended in a draw. So despite having the statistical advantage, at least on that map, New York still drew it out. So Boston came up meter short on completing Nubani. So, across the board, being unable to complete the map is definitely a huge blow, especially in the Overwatch League, when you know what New York is going to be able to do on their attack. And, at the end of the series, it was Sabilby walking away with the Player of the Series honors, and New York, they walked away with a 2nd straight stage title, 100 grand in their pocket. And, this was the first time in the stage finals that they were closed out in fewer than 5 maps. Normally it goes down to the wire. It did not in this one, and, stage 4 right around the horizon. That is going to kick off on May 16th, but New York, man, what can you do at this point? They have adapted better than any team, and, we got to see a lot of flashiness out of them. See, Bilby, we've talked about Striker and how underrated he has been and how he needs to be, mentioned in the same sentence as someone like Sabilby, and then in this series, Sabilby just came in and he's nah, it's me and then everyone else. That's just basically what it came down to at the end of this.
Yeah, I mean, it was close. I mean, it wasn't like the Valiant series where they did shut out a full map. Every map went to overtime. There were long drawn out fights at the end of each map. Nepal went to 99-99 in pretty much all the points. But I think you hit it. I think it was Volskaya. I think Boston had to win their best map. And New York, couldn't win it, but they at least held them to a draw. And they had a phenomenal point B defense the second go around. The first go around, they just let them take it. Boston just walked in and said, "This is ours now." But the second time around, New York did exactly what you said. They adapted, they changed what they were doing, and they had a phenomenal defense on point B to end in a draw. And at that point, I think it was pretty much done for Boston. If you can't beat a team on your best map, that gets in your head. They all know that's their best map. They all know that was their chance to turn it around, and that gets in their head. And then Nubani comes around and they put up a solid performance. New York, pushed it all the way to the end and only stalled out near the end. They took first point rather easily. They took it in about a minute and a half. They pushed through, the second checkpoint with, little struggles. And then they kind of stalled it out at the end, but they did eventually push it in overtime. Whereas when Boston came in, they struggled to take first point. They did eventually take it with about a minute left. So that's, about a 3.5 minute take time, which is slower. They had to claw for every inch on point B, but they did eventually get it. And then point C, it was just the Pine show. That's the only way to say it. Pine came in on that map and said, "I am the best Widowmaker in the league, and I am going to be where you don't expect me, and you're going to lose at least 3 people before you realize I'm there." And that's exactly what he did on almost every push. He was coming from aggressive angles, and he showed that he is the best Widowmaker in the league. normally I like to qualify my statements and get a little, iffy. But no, Pine is the best Widowmaker in the league, bar none. There are others that are good, like Surefour. Mistakes now is in that conversation, but Pine is the best. Yeah. So, and that's what it was. Like I was talking to people in chat, people were messaging me while we were watching the finals, and I was like, if Pine is on a Widow map, that is a loss. That is almost guaranteed a loss. Unless Pine is having a bad day, that is a loss. And that's why New York, they didn't struggle when he wasn't there because they're such a strong team. But now that he's back in full force, I think New York's going to pull off a perfect stage. I think we're going to see stage 4. I don't think they're going to lose a map unless something crazy happens. But they are the best team in the league right now. They took that loss from Boston and they said, okay, we're going to take it a little more seriously now. And they just stuffed them. I mean, they won 3-0 in 4 maps. That's still pretty good. So, best team in the league, and they deserve to be up there.
Yeah, what I loved about Pine and the way he played that was you could just tell that he was feeling it because he just turned up the aggression. He basically felt like he could not die. And a lot of that did have to do with the fact that, yes, Ark was pocketing him a lot of the time. But, there was another player on that team that just did not see to die at all, and that was Meko, their D.Va player, who I think without question at this point is the best D.Va in the league. I think Note, he's still in the discussion, but Meko, he does so much for this team, and he just does not get the love that he deserves because a lot of the protection is off of his peel-in, so if he's not dying, you're going to be in for a bad time because that means pretty much everyone else is also not dying. Like Pine in this case, but man, Boston, they came in with a ton of momentum, but New York is that's cute. You beat us once, try it again, come at us, and then, this happens. So
come at me, bro.
Yeah, the next time these two teams face, I am very intrigued to see, okay, well, how is Boston going to try to respond here? Because, definitely, after Volskaya, Boston was shook. If you can't beat someone that you've beaten literally everyone on that map, where can you beat him? And that's basically just what it came down to. But man, New York back-to-back, they've been in all the stage finals, and I don't see any way that they're going to lose that top spot in the league overall. So, they're pretty much locked in to get that bye for the end of season playoffs. So, they're definitely in it to win it. And, averaging 9-1, a stage, pretty damn good. So we'll see whether or not that they can get that 10-0 or if that will be elusive to them. But guys, as I mentioned, Stage 4 is going to kick off May 16th. We talked about the new map pool already, so we're not going to go over that. But with Stage 4, we are going to be seeing some major changes, and a lot of that is due to the introduction of Brigitte into the Overwatch League. Now, the current season of competitive has been a pretty hot topic amongst the community. A lot of people either love it or they hate it. And
that's the category I'm in.
And okay, so here's my gist of it. I love it for the fact that there are so many viable options, but I hate it due to the fact that it restrains the heroes that I can actually play. And that's a fair point. I like it, and
it is.
I'm middle of the ground right now, but we went through so long with Brigitte not being competitive, and then they're patching in some balance changes to the PTR, and then it's just well, why couldn't this be in live when they introduced her into competitive when it had that much time? That's another point entirely, but Brigitte is definitely going to shake things up in the Overwatch League. Teams that have been very dominant in the dive meta, looking at you, Boston, could see their legs basically cut out from underneath them with this meta breaker of a hero. So, Spider, based off of what we've seen so far on ladder or in some of these show matches that have been played on the newer patch, do you expect that we're going to see more teams moving away from straight dive in Stage 4?
Eventually, I think week 1 we're gonna see some pretty standard dive comps come out, with the exception of the teams that are already eliminated. We may see some variation on them, but Overwatch League teams are kind of known to stick to what they're good at, so I feel like there's not going to be a whole lot of innovations initially. Um, what we will probably see is maybe week 2, week 3, and then definitely by the end of the stage, we're gonna see Brigitte come in full force. I feel like we're gonna start seeing the popular 3-2-1 comp, which is 3 supports, 2 tanks, and then a DPS. Which, depending on which patch they run, there's rumblings that we may not get the Hanzo rework, but I hope
I
we
want
do.
it so bad.
I hope we do, because that actually puts Hanzo in this meta.
Mhm.
The DPS is either Pharah, Hanzo, or Junkrat, and what the pros have been doing in the pro pugs and high GM and top 500 is damage boosting the Junkrat and racing to see who gets Tire first or who gets Transcendence first, because you have to run a Zen in the 3-2-1 comp. The other comp that's been very popular is running her as an off tank, and then sticking a Zen and still going 2-2-2. So you basically run, it's still 3-2. It gets a little iffy there depending on how you really classify her, but it's basically a tank, Brigitte, 2 supports, and 2 DPS. So it really depends on how you want to play it, and how you pocket it. Like I said, there's the Junkrat strategy, and then there's like the traditional 2-2-2 where you just run her up front for a little extra healing and the armor. But I don't think we'll see it right away. That being said, I hope we do. Totem's feelings aside, I am tired of the dive meta. Like, how long did the Beyblade meta last? 1 season, and everybody hated it. How long did triple tank last? 1 season, and everybody hated it. How long has the dive meta lasted? 5 seasons. It has been the dive meta. So I am ready for something new, regardless of what heroes I play. All right, I'm done with my soapbox. So back to the league. We may see New York run this just because they're locked in already. Speaking of the upper teams, but other than that, we'll probably see Florida try something snarky. Dallas, who knows what they're gonna run? They may just pull people from the crowd to play at this point.
You were gonna just say from the clouds. I'm like, well, I mean, that could work. Like,
Yeah,
they might
exactly.
need that higher call-in just in order to pick up some wins here really soon.
Cloud9's London. Sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to see Brigitte. I've watched a lot of pros play her, and I've seen analysis of pro pugs. Jane has been very good. If you don't watch him, go watch him. His analysis is very good. And everybody's kind of heralding this as like doom and gloom, when really it's just something fresh, and you have to kind of approach it that way. Don't think of it as doom and gloom. Now, if you're a Winston player, primarily only Winston, yes, it is doom and gloom. But if you can flex to other tanks, like, sure, Reinhardt has problems with Brigitte, but he pairs very well with her, so you're still going to see a lot of him. Zarya is going to come back into play.
I was just about to say that.
We're going to see a lot less Diva. I mean, I love playing Diva. I was a Diva main for multiple seasons, but it's time for some of the other tanks to play. And Brigitte, even though she makes their life a little more difficult, also kind of brings them back into the meta. So that is what I am happy.
Yeah, Zarya Reinhardt has been the tank combo that I've been seeing the most. And, that can mean that, like, for the Outlaws, we're going to be seeing Spree back into the rotation on the Zarya. That means Gagiri is going to be off of the Diva role and potentially going to Zarya, or maybe Diva. Or maybe Dia will play Zarya, depending on if they still opt to run Diva. But, this could be the opportunity to see Shanghai have their best their best chance to get that first win, which we'll talk about momentarily. But like, I would just love to see the team just come out and introduce Brigitte immediately, just because if a team doesn't know how to deal with it, like, well, you're just kind of SOL. You can try to stick to something that has worked for you in the past, but it's probably not going to work in this current meta, so it's definitely going to be an interesting stage. So it's really just a matter of, well, how quickly our team is going to implement her into the fold. And, going back to Boston, this is... I don't know how this is going to affect Boston, because Boston for the longest time has been a dive team, but if you look at the roster, this is also the team that has 5 supports, so chances are they have been scrimming Brigitte. So I have a feeling like, okay, maybe it's not going to affect Boston as much as a lot of people are going to assume it would, so I don't know which way it's going to land, but I would expect to see a ton of Mercy boosting the Junkrat to try to deal with Brigitte's armor, because it is pretty good overall. And just speaking of Brigitte, I know Switch from omnicmeta.com posted the new one with Brigitte's patch, and you can see all of the analytical stats that were posted, and just the armor breakdown between, like, when you compare her to Torbjorn, and just the protection that she provides compared to the other tanks or the other supports in general, and how much healing she's doing, all of that good stuff. It is definitely worth a read, but Stage 4 is going to have a different look. It'll have a different feel, and, I'm intrigued, but I'm also on the other spectrum of it. I don't know what to expect. But it does give teams an opportunity to potentially have a better shot and kind of rebound this stage, just because it is going to be so off-putting from everything else that we have seen so far in the Overwatch League. So I'm excited, but I'm also kind of hesitant, so I'm just going to see how it plays out. But, speaking of teams that could greatly benefit from, the introduction of new heroes, or, bringing Zarya into the fold, we got to talk about Shanghai. So Shanghai, they are in the history books. Not for a good reason. Now, I've brought this up in the past, but it is official. The Shanghai Dragons hold the longest losing streak in professional sports history.
Woo.
Oof.
Ooh.
But a change in the meta could be exactly what the Shanghai Dragons need. So, not only are we going to be seeing more Zarya into the fold, due to the fact that Ryan, Brigitte, and Zarya pair so well together, but, we're also going to see the return of Kane's Row into the map rotation. And, Kagiri, she is known for her Zarya. Her Diva has been pretty damn good throughout Stage 3. She might not be, top 3, but she's definitely been holding her own against some of the better Divas in the league. And when we look at Stage 4, who do they go up against to open Stage 4? The Dallas Fuel, who, like Shanghai, honestly, based off of what we have seen lately, I would say Shanghai has looked a lot better than Dallas. So, this could be it.
I can't disagree with you. I mean, basically, they've flip-flopped, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Dallas Fuel Stage 4 is Shanghai Stage 1 at this point. They've consistently lost more games each stage, and this is their stage where they would, lose. They could possibly lose out. The map pool favors Shanghai. The only thing that gives me hope is Effect. Effect showed last time that he can just carry them through to a win against Shanghai. Now, this was, before the roster really got kicking and stuff like that. So it will be much harder this time to do that. But I feel like, at least regardless of outcome, this is going to be an entertaining bottom of the barrel match. Like, these two teams, I feel like, are evenly matched. So it's not going to be like, Dallas was last week with New York, where they basically got dumpstered and then they took a map at the very end. Or, that seems to be what happens with Dallas now, is they get wrecked the first 3 maps. Like it's like they don't even show up, and then the 4th map, the team feels so bad that they just did that they're like, okay, we're gonna give you a chance. And I hate saying that as a Dallas fan, but you know that's the team we're living with in stage 4. So I would not be upset at this point if Shanghai beat Dallas. Stage 3, I would have been a little upset because there was still that minuscule level of hope because we had a new tank coming in. You know, we had the roster kind of moving, but now it's kind of like, well, the shit has hit the fan. It's all over the room. The only thing we could do is just kind of clean it off and get on with our lives.
Yeah, and if there's one thing I want to say right now, I have a little bit of a plea to the people that are going to be working the booth for this series between Shanghai and Dallas. For the love of God, do not all pick Shanghai and then just give Effect that look that he's like, okay, I need to just murder Shanghai. Like what happened last time, because I really feel like that played a major role, because Effect just felt...
Did.
Effect was so pissed off that he was like, oh, you think Shanghai's gonna beat us? No! I'm not gonna take that stand-in.
He went on Twitter after the fact and basically said that. He's like, I can't believe you guys picked us to lose to Shanghai. That pissed me off. No.
Yeah, so don't tilt Effect. Don't get in his head and just turn the switch on for him. No, we can't have that happen again. This needs to be Shanghai's first win, because if it's not, you know, they don't really have that many easy opponents in terms of stage 4. I know they face Shock. I don't know if they face the Mayhem in their lineup. I'd have to double check, but it's not an easy stage for Shanghai. But I think if you're looking at any team right now, Dallas is definitely Shanghai's best chance, just because out of all of the teams, Dallas right now is the most vulnerable that they have ever been. And, you know, when you get rolling, regardless of which direction you're in, it is really hard to stop that. So we'll see just how far this is going to be able to snowball, but I am really hoping that this will be the one of 1 of the 40 that actually comes out with a win for Shanghai. Because I am really curious to see how the fan involvement or interaction is going to alter once they do pick up that first win. Just because Shanghai kind of is the home crowd at the Blizzard Arena. Despite, you know, being Shanghai. But, in other news, guys... Oh, go ahead.
They do play the Mayhem and the Shock. So
okay.
They do have all 3 of the bottom rung teams.
Okay, that's good to know.
As a chance.
Alright, well, with that being said, you know, we are 3 stages down. We are getting closer and closer to the end of season playoffs. So, just as a reminder, the way that the end of season playoffs are going to work is, you know, we'll have the top 6 teams competing. The top finisher, based on map record for each division, is going to earn a round bye in the playoffs, with the remaining 4 slots being filled by the teams with the best win-loss record during the regular season. So, as I mentioned, New York, they have a very firm grasp on that number 1 spot with a 27-3 record through the first 3 stages. And leading the way for the Pacific Division, we have the Seoul Dynasty.
Woo!
Woo! Yeah, we gotta take our wins where we can get them. They right now have a 19-11 record through 3 stages. Now, there is a team nipping at their buds in the LA Valiant who only have 1 less win than Seoul Dynasty. So both are basically vowing for that top spot in the Pacific. But if we look at the top 6, we have the New York Excelsior. We have Boston Uprising. Boston has 22 wins. London is 3rd with 20 wins. The Dynasty have 19. And then at 18 wins, we have the LA Valiant and the Philadelphia Fusion. So those are your top 6. And then the teams that are kind of like on the outside looking in, both currently sitting at 16 wins. We have the Houston Outlaws and the LA Gliders. So still very much in the running. But for Dallas, for Florida, and for Shanghai, their playoff chances are done. Their season, at least their end of season, their end of season playoffs are completely shot.
Mm.
If they somehow make the stage playoffs, that would be fantastic. Unlikely, given how things have kind of played out, but I don't see any one of those threes making it. And I think the same can pretty much be said for the San Francisco Shock at this point, because right now they are sitting at 12 wins through 3 stages. And, top 6 already has 18 wins. That's already a 6-win differential. So, if you think LA Valiant and Philadelphia Fusion are going to only win 3 games in the stage, I don't see that happen on either front. But, kind of looking at how things are mapped out, the LA Valiant and Seoul Dynasty are neck and neck. With this new meta, do you favor one of them over the other? Who do you think is going to get that top spot when all is said and done for the Pacific Division?
I mean, I think Seoul has shown that they're gonna right the ship, and I think they'll ride it out and take that top spot. I think Valiant and Fusion will probably make it in just off of their record. The only one I don't know about the Fusion, the confusion, as Slambo would call them. They do confuse me. There are weeks where they look like the best team in the league, and there are other weeks that look like they belong in the bottom 4. It just, I don't know. Carpe always seems consistent, but it's the rest of the team that seems to crumble, like Fraggy, and the supports make questionable decisions and stuff like that. Some weeks Poco isn't quite playing up to what we expect out of him. Their DPS tend to always show up. It's just if the rest of the team. Gladiators kind of have a similar problem in that their supports, you never quite know what supports you're going to get. Shaz and Big Goose are a great support lineup, but as we saw, they have trouble making decisions when pressured. And if Fisher can't pull map wins out of his butt like he has the past 2 stages, they're going to struggle. So that kind of cuts the Gladiators out for me. That kind of puts Philly on the tipping point. I feel like Houston in this new meta could thrive because Houston has always been that anti-dive, meta. They're going to have Spree come in for Kings Row. They have Fact Fiction that can play Reinhardt. Muma's pretty good Reinhardt as well. I feel like this meta is going to be very good for them. And, we can't understate the Jake Rat. So I feel like this meta is going to favor Houston. So I'm giving Houston a little bit more benefit of the doubt than I am the other teams on the edge. That being said, I'm just going to go back to what I started with. I think Seoul is going to ride it out and take the Pacific side. I can't not put my faith in them. They've let us down so far. I am not a soulmate, but I do root for Seoul. I own a Ryu Jae-hong jersey. I do support them. I just couldn't conform because I had to pick a dumpster fire of a team to support for some reason. But these end of season playoffs are shaping up to be really exciting. We've seen upsets. We've seen crazy things happen, and we're going to see it in a whole new meta by then, because that's going to be the point where everything has kind of stabilized. We'll probably have another patch at that point. The supposed Ana changes will come in. So maybe Ryu Jae-hong will go back to his fame and we'll see Miro come back into play. Who knows at that point? But looking at the standings now, I think if I had to peg a top 6, it would probably be the ones that are in the top 6 now. The only difference is maybe Fusion will swap out for Outlaws. That's really the only movement I really see coming down. Now, whether or not the Valiant get the first seed over Seoul is up to debate. No one's going to take the first seed from New York. That, feasibly cannot happen unless something ridiculous happens, like they decide to sit all their players and play 2-on-6 for the rest of the stage. I think that's cool for stage 4, and you know, I sound kind of down about that as I'm thinking about it. I'm like, oh man, so stage 4 really doesn't matter that much for a lot of these teams, but it does, because this is going to be where the teams figure out how to play in this new meta, and I think that's going to give us a very exciting stage, regardless of who's actually going to move around.
Yeah, I think when I look at who I think is going to be in the top 6, the Valiant have always been a good team, but that's another one of those teams that has been kind of questionable when it comes to what they want to do with their lineup. Because there were some times in their series, in the playoffs where like I felt like, okay, maybe you just should have ran dive there rather than trying to go into like the Widow Dueler. Why was Bunny played over Soon when he wasn't quite having the same effect? So Valiant right now, to me, are the team that is going to be on the bubble. I'm not as much worried about Philadelphia. I think they will be fine overall. But I think out of the teams that are, kind of just on the outside looking in, I think the Outlaws will be finishing in the top 6. And if I have a bold prediction, I think Seoul will only be the sole Pacific team at the end of the season playoffs. We'll have New York, we'll have Boston, we'll have London, Philadelphia Fusion, Houston Outlaws, and the Seoul Dynasty. And that would be really weird to only see one team from that division actually make it, but that just shows you just how good the Atlantic Division is. You look at the lineup, and the top 3 teams right now, all in the Atlantic, and you have the Philadelphia Fusion, who are only a couple of games behind that, but I can't feel very confident in either LA squad to really make that final push, but who knows? The Valiant, they're one of those teams that, their map differential is 4th best overall. Now they're doing a little bit better in compared to Seoul in that regard. And Boston, they're 22-8, but their map differential doesn't really kind of match what the record is, because they have been in a lot of very close series. It hasn't all been clean 4-0s or anything like that, like we have seen from New York time and time again. Hence why they have a plus 68 map differential. And watch, by the end of stage 4, they are going to be double over whoever that second team is, I have a feeling, in terms of just map differential. Not second overall, but second in map differential. Because, you look right now, and London is plus 38. They're already 30 higher than that, so it could happen.
Yeah. Map differential is a big thing that I kind of took into my consideration, because that's kind of what I gave the edge to Houston for, not just the meta, but Houston, out of those, say bottom 4 teams that are still on running, including Philly, who is technically in the spot right now, Houston actually has a better map differential record than Philly does, and a much better match differential record than LA Gladiators do. So I feel like with the meta and the map differential, they're going to pick up some key wins, and if it comes down to maps, they've already got the lead. Poor San Francisco Shock is not even in that conversation. So it's going to be a fun stage. I am excited to see what these teams do. I just hope the Hanzo rework gets put in. Please, Jeff, just push it. These guys are paid a bunch of money. They can deal with Hanzo not having scatter arrow.
It's not like they're not playing on the ladder. We see them streaming all the time. They know what to expect at this point. Put the Hanzo rework in. We'll deal with Brigitte in her OP state without the nerfs. But I do want to see the new Hanzo, just based off of the fact that Hanzo really hasn't really been seen outside of, the early, arrow to get the sights, basically.
That's the other argument, is there is a Brigitte nerf in the Hanzo patch with the shield cone.
Mm-hmm.
So that would also help with, the alleged Brigitte OP-ness, as they say. But yeah, I feel like they have to put that in. There are rumblings that they're not. Siegel kind of said it on his stream that the Hanzo rework is not going in, which I think is dumb, because it's been out on ladder already, prior to the stage starting, prior to the stage ending, stage 3 ending. So I feel like there's no reason to not put it in at this point. Like you said, these pros play ladder. They scrim, 5-6 days a week. So just put it in. Pay we pay these pros money, and I think that would help viewership because there's going to be less disconnect. It's not like, oh, they're playing on an obsolete patch. So I'm excited for stage 4.
Alright, well, with that being said, guys, let's go ahead and close things out tonight. So if you would like to help out the show, one of the best and quickest ways to do that is to go leave us a review over on iTunes. Any feedback or constructive criticism is always welcomed, just because that will offer us insight on how we can make for a better listen experience. We do have another game night coming up. That is on Saturday, May 19th, so join us at 7 p.m. Pacific Time for another night of friendly community competitive games, and we'll be streaming those games live over on our Twitch channel, and I'll most likely be doing that. We do have our Pick'em League. Stage 4 is going to get underway in, a little bit over a week, so you can find the URL to that in our show notes. We're giving out stage prizes as well as end-of-season prizes. And I got to contact 2 of the other winners, because they haven't reached out yet for Stage 3. But with that, I'm going to go over the... You know what? Slambo's not here. You already know who's in first, second, and third. I will spare Spider for this 1 week, because he knows where he is. But I will say, differential for points-wise, this past week, between myself and Slambo was only 200. It was very close. But Spider, why don't you go ahead and let everyone know where they can get a hold of us over on the social media.
Sure. You can email the show at owlnshow@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at owlnshow. Our website is exactly the same, www.owlnshow.com. YouTube, you can search Overwatch League Network on YouTube. We're kind of retooling our YouTube. We're going to have some more content coming up, so look forward to that. But in the meantime, go subscribe so that you get that content when it comes out. You can find our Discord at discord.me/OWLNshow. Twitch, if you are not watching live right now, you can find us on twitch.tv/OWLNshow. Sounds like a broken record. But we have 3 shows throughout the week. We have our Monday show, which is what you're currently listening to, which is Overwatch League Network. That is at 7 p.m. PT. We have our Path to Pro, Contenders, Tier 2, pretty much everything that's Overwatch League related that isn't actually Overwatch League. The Back Cap, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. PT. And then we have our variety Overwatch show, which is Heroes Never Die, which is basically everything else Overwatch, with Edinar, who was filling in for me last week, and Totem. That is Thursdays at 5 p.m. PT. But I have to specify this. Starting May 15th, the Back Cap and Heroes Never Die will switch nights. So, was that next week? Next week?
Oh, I mean, today is the 7th.
It's gotta be next week, right? So next week, they will flip-flop. So Heroes Never Die will be on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. PDT, and the Back Cap will be Thursdays at 7 p.m. PDT. And then Friday nights, starting at, we'll say 7:30 PDT, around about there. There's going to be a little bit more informal stream. I'll be streaming. I may do some analysis. I may just play comp. I may go over some games. It's just going to be a little bit more free form, just general streaming, Friday fun nights type of thing. So, if PTR's up, maybe we'll check out PTR. Just, general stuff. There's no show title. There's no flashy stuff. It's just me being me. So if you don't like me, I'm sorry. But if you want to tell me how much you don't like me, you can find me on Twitter at SpiderGD. And you can find me on Twitch TV /SpiderGD. But like I said, I'm primarily going to be on our own Twitch, which is OWLN show.
All right. Well, Slambo, he had to dip out earlier, but if you want to find him over on Twitter, you can find him at SlamBoverwatch and on Twitch at twitch.tv/Slambo. And as for myself, Totally Drunk, you can find me on Twitter at TotallyDrunkCTR, as well as Twitch at twitch.tv/TotallyDrunk. But guys, that is going to do it for us here tonight on Overwatch League Network. Again, this has been episode 32. I'm Totally Drunk. That is Spider, and, Slambo is in the Abyss. And with that, guys, we are going to head out. So have a good night, and we will see you back on Wednesday. Have a good night.
Thank you for listening to the Overwatch League Network. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at OWLN Show. The theme music for OWLN is the main theme and victory theme guitar remix by Michael Mack.